Good afternoon. The time is 2:01, and I would like to call the Marketing, Regulatory, and Legislative Subcommittee meeting for today, Friday, May 9th, 2025, to order. We're located at 1999 Harrison Street, Suite 2300 in Oakland, and there are remote locations in. I have that. Apologies. Remote locations at the Albany Community Center, 1249 Marin Avenue. Provided in the agenda. Members of the public wishing to make a comment can do so by either using the raise hand function in Zoom or pressing *9 if you're joining through telephone. Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Yep. Director Lopez. Director Lopez.
Present.
Director Triga.
Present.
Director Diallo. Director Barrientos.
Present.
Director Nygaard.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. Quorum has been established. We will now move on to item 2, public comment. Public comment is reserved for members of the public wishing to give a comment on non-agenda items. Members of the public will have 2 minutes to give their comment. Are there members of the public wishing to make a comment on a non-agenda item in the room? I don't see anyone in the room. On Zoom?
There's currently no members of the public with their hand raised.
Okay. If there are no further public comments or any public comments, the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from Friday, December 2024. Wanted to see if we can maybe take a minute to just review the minutes. It's been a long time since we met.
Certainly worth noting that only 2 board members were in that committee at that point in time, so acknowledging that.
Yeah.
I will abstain since I wasn't here.
Well,
And I might want to consider whether we can have those that we will need at least one to vote. Understanding, of course, you were not present.
which the Robert's rules allows for voting on minutes, even if you were not present, if you wish. When folks are done reviewing, wanted to see if there are any edits or motions.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Fantastic. Clark, can you please take the roll?
Director Lopez.
You should take public comment first, right?
Oh, yes, thank you. Is there any public comment on the minutes?
There are no members of the public with their hand raised at this time.
Great. Now we can take the roll.
Director Lopez.
Yes.
Director Triga.
Aye.
Director Diallo. Director Barrientos.
Aye.
Director Nygaard.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Fantastic. So I believe the next item is the chair selection, and is it possible to turn this item over to staff for the purpose of,
I'm happy to introduce it if you'd like.
sure.
So we typically have a chair elected for each of the subcommittees, marketing, regulatory, legislative, given some of the turnover of the body itself. Currently does not have a chair seated leading this particular subcommittee. So this particular item is to allow for discussion amongst board members to elect. Okay.
Any volunteers?
I'm happy to
Is it paid?
facilitate a discussion if you would like me to, but if there is any interest from any members, it would perhaps be a good time to voice some level of interest, and if is any interest from any members to speak towards or nominate a fellow member, that is also an option.
I nominate Igor, he's doing a good job. It's paid, Igor, you get money for it.
To be clear, the same stipend that every board member gets is what he gets.
I'm really good at doing things for little pay, little to no pay.
Well, then I'll second that. If you wish to accept.
Thank you. I graciously accept.
All right, we can take a vote on that.
Before that, though, is there any discussion that board members would like to have on the nomination and the second there,
Or other nominations.
or other nominations for that matter? Hearing none. Public comment as well.
There are no public comments at this time.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna take the vote. Director Lopez,
Yes.
Director Trigger,
Aye.
Director Jallo, Director Barrientos,
Aye.
and Director Nyberg.
Aye.
Congratulations, we have a new chair.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And do we need
Now it's
a,
formally yours.
wow, thank you. Do we need to select a vice chair or?
For subcommittees, we typically do not have a
Okay.
vice chair. The role of the vice chair really is to primarily sit in if the chair is not available, but what we've typically done is just to ask for a substitute to sit in to the extent you're not available for a meeting.
Okay, well, thank you so much, team. I'm really honored and we have a wonderful subcommittee and just look forward to working with you. One of the kind of comments I've made in the past is I would like for this subcommittee to be more engaged in legislative and regulatory, I guess, oversight of our AVA's advocacy efforts. And I think we have a good team to do that and excellent staff. So without further ado, and actually on that note, I'd like to turn it over to, I believe, Sam, who will introduce this item, or maybe it's CEO Cheng. And then Sam for the 2025 legislative update.
That's me.
Oh, it's you. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'll introduce the item, then I'll hand the reins over to Sam. So this item is a prelude to a requested board vote on positions on legislation currently pending before the state legislature. So I had introduced a suite of bills for potential consideration both by the MRL and by the board at the last board meeting, and flagged that those were the ones from which we would probably be selecting a subset for the board to actually take positions and inviting folks on the board, members of the board, to come to us if there was anything that was not there that they wanted added. So Chair Tergoob identified some bills which we put on the to be thought about list, and we will speak to those here as we go through the list where we identify the bills that we did land on for presenting to the board for positions. As we will outline, in addition to the bill positions, we're also presenting at the board an update to the legislative program, which informs the positions that we ultimately, the bills that we ultimately select to take positions on and the positions that we take on those bills. So while that's not here in the MRL presentation, it will be before the board. It was part of the materials that were submitted at the last board meeting as well, and we'll touch on those as Sam goes through the particular bills. So against that backdrop, I will hand the reins over to Mr. Sadel here to step through the bills.
Sure. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Chair. Very excited to walk through this with you all. Got it pulled up? Perfect. Everything great. We're gonna talk about a few things. I'd encourage directors to please, if you have questions, feel free to ask them as I walk through this. It's a lot of information, I know. So do not feel the need to wait to hold your questions till the end. You can jump in on any bill that you're interested in. The goal today is to give you a preview of what we will be asking for next month. So my hope is that as you come across things that you have questions, reach out. If I can answer, great. And if not, I will get back to you between now and the actual board vote in a couple weeks. Perfect. You can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. So yeah, no, you're great. I just want to walk through where we are in the California legislative timeline. We are here in May. Today is the deadline for non-fiscal bills to move to the floor. Fiscal bills already had a deadline of last week, which means that we are really seeing a narrowing down of the number of bills that are still under consideration. So what you'll see as we get a little further on, some of our bills that we had been tracking in the past are now no longer under consideration, so we've removed them from our list. Next slide. This is a slide that I have not put nothing on, but we will update you when the governor's revised budget comes out. We expect it to come out next week, probably Wednesday, so hopefully we'll have much more sense. As I mentioned in the last meeting, and I will likely mention again in our future meetings, this is going to be a very challenging budget year for the state of California. We're getting some interesting news, but everything we're hearing is it's just going to be challenged top to bottom. So we will know much more next week. Great. We started with 2,350 bills at the bill introduction deadline in February. We took those 2,300 bills and narrowed them down to about 100 bills that in some way touch on our JPA, the Joint Powers Agreement, and the issues that we talked about in the Joint Powers Agreement. Community energy programs, local power development, greenhouse gas emissions, electricity rates stability. Each one of these, about 100 bills that we're keeping an eye on. Next slide. From there, we went from about those 100 bills to 35 bills that we dug much deeper on. Those 35 bills are all connected to our 5 primary planks of the legislative program that Todd mentioned. Accelerating decarbonization, promoting local development, community choice, affordability, and then bill transparency. And by bill, in this case, I mean bills to customers, not legislative bills. And so we took these 35 bills as well as suggestions from the board, these what came to 35. We worked with some board members, CalCCA, our industry association, and then of course our internal stakeholders. So that's our Power Resources group and our local projects groups, and each of the groups internally to say what are going to be the potential impacts of these bills on AVA and our program. Next slide. From there, we are down to 14 bills that we're recommending the board take a position on. Of the 35, I should say 6 of them are no longer under consideration. They've not moving forward this session. So we went from 35 to 29, and then from 29, staff recommends you take positions on 14 bills. And the reason we're not recommending that you take positions on all 29 bills is because many of them do not have a direct impact on us. And this is what you'll see right here at the bottom of this slide. We wanted to put some sort of a framework, which we know will evolve over time, onto what bills we actually want to take a position on. And the three sort of filters we're taking. One, if it directly impacts our operation or our legislative program. That's clear. It obviously impacts us. We should take a position on it. So that's sort of one subset of bills. Another subset of bills are bills that generally support the vision of an affordable, sustainable, and local energy system, and bills that are sort of non-controversial. We like them, everybody likes them, they're doing things we want to see happen. We feel that we can take a stance on those. I would say if those are controversial and don't directly impact us, it's less likely we're going to want to take a stance. And then thirdly, bills where AVA's perspective, the board members, our delegation, our staff, have key specific resonance with decision makers. So something that really matters that where we might have a unique voice to add to the conversation that can guide the bill moving forward. And that's how we've ended up on these 14 bills. The 14 suggested actions here come to meet one of these 3 categories. I'm going to pause if you have any questions about the categories that we've established. Okay, hearing none, I'll move on. We sorted the bills by subject matter, and the first 3 bills here are about how do you make electricity more affordable. They are bills, and you'll see here on the left side is the bill number, its author, a description, our suggested action, and on the right side is where it is in the legislative process. How far along has it moved forward? 25%, 55%, 75%, just to give you some sense of what progress it's making. Of these 3 here, I think we want to call out the support recommendation for AB 729 and SB 254. AB 729 would move the climate credit from where it currently stands, which is a single payment in April. And instead, residential customers would receive the electricity climate credit in August and September. We're in favor of this, our team is in favor of this, staff is, because we believe that this would help with consumer bills at the highest and most expensive months of electricity use. And that would, we believe, be good for driving down the price of electricity, but also would drive down some of our arrears. This is when we see many of our customers will begin to fall behind when their bills are highest over the course of the year. Questions on that one? This is pretty non-controversial. No one's really raised a fuss about this in the assembly or in the assembly at this point.
I have one, just I forgot to ask when
Yes.
we last discussed this. This is part of several bills, as I understand it, that are moving forward to limit rate increases. Can you speak to how this fits within the broader context of?
Yeah, this is part of two bills. This is part of 729 as a standalone bill. This is also part of SB 254, which will be the next one. So that's the broader Senate's affordability package being pushed by the Senate Pro Tem. It just kind of got slotted in under there. The AB 729 has been around. It was introduced at the beginning of session. We are seeing the idea rolled into other affordability bills, which SB 254, which was just introduced week before, or last week or the week before. So it would be part of either one of those if either 254 or 729 were to pass.
Okay,
It's not part of the rate capping bills that you're thinking of.
okay. So the rate capping bills are, right, we're gonna discuss them.
Well, we've got
Later.
one here, right, which the rate capping bills is AB 99 is the rate capping bill here. This is, we are electing to take a monitor position on the rate capping bill, AB,
Right.
we're suggesting this. And I'm happy to go into any bill, I was just going in depth on the ones we're suggesting a position on. AB 99, it would prohibit IOUs from rate increases above inflation. I think that, it's a bill with a lot of potential unintended consequences. I don't think we actually know what would come out of it. There is one other bill that also suggests a rate capping bill that we'll get to later on. I think from our perspective, it doesn't impact us directly. It would be an IOU bill, and while we do link our rates to IOU rates, we would of course follow along, but it's not one that we feel warrants us taking a position on our own.
Does this align with, Ava gives rebates to customers and you have.
Our own on-bill credits?
Yeah, so does that timeframe align?
It does not directly align. Do you want to speak to the time frame that we do our own on-bill credits?
Sure, so we've done 2 years now of on-bill credits as a result of surplus revenues. So we can't do that until after the fiscal year audit is complete, which is typically in the fall. And then there is time to sort of put that into operations. And so we've typically assigned those bill credits sort of in the December timeframe for residential and then January timeframe for commercial customers. So if we wanted to align it, I don't think we could expedite the audit, so it'd be a matter of holding it for 8 months. Yeah, pretty long time.
I think our interest is get out as quick as we can, and we have to get the audit done, which is typically done at the very end of October, sometimes even early November. So it's kind of, we really do it as, basically as quickly as we can. Maybe we
Yeah.
get accelerated by a few weeks or something like that.
Yeah, and I think we will see a difference now serving a larger portion of San Joaquin County. But for the previous Ava service territory, the winter bills are actually pretty significant because there is less air conditioning. So comparatively across the year, a winter application seemed to make sense for those customers. But I think we might see shifts in that as we serve more and more to our eastern area.
Do the credits you offer customers, do those expire?
They're on-bill credits, so
They're
they go directly to
You
the.
go directly to
Yeah,
the bill?
so there's no
Okay.
expiration, there's no action they need to take or anything. And similar here, the climate credit, there's no action that anyone takes, it just goes directly nets your bill costs.
Yeah, in some ways, I would say it's nice that we don't directly align because it kind of then creates bill rate relief over yeah, exactly.
see this as attempting to match some of that with the natural gas climate credit in February. It had been earlier on the bill, it was in December. They then moved it to February at the response to others who had pushed for it to move to the highest usage gas month. Great, okay. 254 is the larger clean energy infrastructure, is the larger Senate affordability package here that you'll see. This is being pushed by Senator Becker, who's the chair of the committee, as well as the President Pro Tem of the Senate. This would include what's in 729, as well as a large number of other things as well. 90% of this does not impact us, so this is kind of another broader thing, but we're also excited about this is the possibility to keep costs down for folks. So this is a good thing, and we are be supporting this. We're suggesting a support for 254. Great. Next slide. Now we move to accelerating decarbonization. You may have seen this in the past. There were a lot more bills here. Of those that we lost were two pretty large battery bill around batteries. 283 is still moving through the process. We are suggesting a supportive amended position here where we are working with the author's office. We've not yet been successful, but we want to ensure that this will not be applied retroactively to existing battery plants, as well as would allow for current plants under construction to continue moving forward under the current rules as the transition to the new rules could delay some of those processes. Moving quickly to 39, you'll see down below. 39 is a bill that would require every city in their general plan or in a specific plan, every city over 75,000 in a general or specific plan to have an electrification, decarbonization, and community energy plan. Nearly every community in our service area already has a plan along these lines. The only ones that have not adopted a similar type of plan yet are Stockton and San Joaquin County, both of which are still in process. And so we've spoken with Stockton that they're in the process of drafting that for themselves and for the county. So that should be without a problem to meet that requirement by 2030. Continuing on to AB 306, I know the one, you'll see the highlighted section on the left there, that is because one of our members of our delegation in Sacramento is a author or co-author, in this case, Assemblymember Wicks. This is a bill that has been getting a lot of attention, but as you can see is moving, 55% is moving very quickly through the state legislature, and this would pause REACH codes, all changes to building standards codes, including REACH codes, for the next 6 years. We're suggesting a monitor situation, as this would not impact us directly. However, we are working under the CalCCA umbrella to push for some amendments to ensure that would allow the 2025 building code to come into effect and ideally exempt existing housing, and this would only apply to new housing. I will just quickly, 282 is a heat pump bill. It's a streamlined heat pump installation. We're suggesting a support position there. And then as we move it, continuing on decarbonization, 915, which would create a clean energy reliability investment plan and require CEC to staff up a number of new positions to help folks, to help communities move through decarbonization. This originally had come with a $900 million appropriation as part of it. That appropriation was stripped out, and this would essentially create the framework, waiting for the state to put money into this. We're fans of this. Supports, if it were to be funded, would support a new progressive approach to decarbonization, not putting the bill on ratepayers, but instead on the state. And so we would like to see this come into action. Okay. Hearing no questions, SB 698, this is a bill that would establish DER, that would put into state legislation the ability for CEC to establish DER equipment lists. CEC already does this today. This would just give them regular legislative clarity that they can and should continue to do this. So this is no real change from a practical perspective, but we think is good and would help with would hopefully accelerate DER adoption. Next page. Looking at on our next series of slides here, we're now moving to local development, vehicle charging, and data centers. We're suggesting a support position on SB 314. 314 would allow us and others to get chargers moving faster. And so we're a fan of this because we would like, this will hopefully help us expand the AVA charge program in a more expeditious manner. On the 1423 side, we're suggesting a monitor position. 1423 would apply penalties and new reliability guidelines to state-funded vehicle chargers. We are working with the author to try to get some amendments. We believe that CCAs will not be covered under this, but we want to be sure. And so we're working with the author to ensure that, but we are in a monitor position. We're not opposed to the bill, we're not in favor of it, but we want to make sure that we're clarified in this. Perfect. Moving on to data centers. Data centers obviously a major concern of AVA and many others. We have two bills here, both of which are being pushed. Were authored by members of our delegation. 222 we're in a support if amended position. AB 222 is really a information collection and data gathering exercise. The reason we're support if amended is we'd like to have a couple of changes. We'd like to ensure that at the moment the bill calls for the data to be shared publicly around energy use at the time of when a AI data center comes online. I think our belief is that information would be better utilized by AVA and others if it was before the plant was built, so that we can address our infrastructure in alignment with the building of the plant, not when the plant becomes operational. And on the SB 57 side, this is a monitor, as this would be more on T&D and data centers, so not directly impacting us specifically. Great, next slide. You should note, by the way, if you go back to the last slide, one of our big pushes is protecting community choice. There are no bills coming after community choice this session. So major congratulations to everybody involved in that long-term effort. I even put a little space down there just in case, but there's nothing. But I'm keeping that space all year long. So next slide. As we move on, this is when we talk about dynamic rates and bill transparency. Obviously, there are two bills here. 44 is publicized load modification protocols. This would just allow us to easier adjust some of our electrical demand forecasts. So we support this. We want to see this move forward, allow us to do our jobs better. And then 541. 541 is our only opposed recommendation. It is currently at an oppose unless amended. I think 541 has been occupying a lot of our time as we work through this. The load shifting potential is a very challenging thing to measure and then to put value to. And we are working closely with Senator Becker's office on updates to this. And my hope is that when I come back in 2 weeks, I will actually not bring forth an oppose unless amended, because we will have gotten the amendments. So fingers crossed, but it definitely feels like that's moving in the right direction. Next slide. Okay, now we move on to bills that are covered that are really concerning IOUs, that are much more disconnected from us. Obviously, we work closely with IOUs, but we want to make sure that we don't want to take a strong stance on bills that don't directly impact us, and here's a series of them. We want to monitor all of these, however, because of course we're very connected to the IOUs and we work closely. So between 740, which is about goals on load shifting, 884, which is 884 and 884, 1167, and 24 are all about what IOUs can spend their money on, primarily around political influence and the regulations on that. And then 1117, which is on dynamic pricing for IOUs. CCA participation would be only voluntary, which is good. So We want to keep an eye on these because they all have impacts, but we don't suggest taking a position on any one of them. Next slide. Similarly, with the rest of the IOU bills, 332 and 500, we suggest the same approach. Keep an eye, monitor. Obviously, you can see 332 is authored by Wahab, who's in our delegation, but we don't suggest taking positions on either of these items. Board operations, these are both two great Brown Act bills, which we definitely recommend supporting. 259, which would allow teleconferencing indefinitely, this would be for our board, and then 239, which would authorize subsidiary bodies like this one to continue using teleconferencing through 2030. So we recommend supporting both of those bills. Next slide. So when we move past this, we move to sort of our other bills that don't fit in nicely and easily into our categories. A lot of these are going to be monitored. I did want to particularly call out SB 453 SCHIP, which is an important program for us. We believe that it'll be very supplemental and helpful with our forthcoming VPP program. We would like to see it extended for 2 years. Well, obviously, we want to see it extended. It is currently scheduled to end at the end of this year, and this would extend it until the end of 2027. And so we want to come out strongly in support of that. The one I would call out is SB 842. We are in a monitor position on this one. We've dug pretty deeply on 842. 842 is a bill that would require understanding more development of firm zero carbon resources in certain constrained areas and how they play into local reliability planning. The bill mandates, and this is the key piece, it mandates that IRPs consider, integrated resource plans, consider firm zero carbon resources. It originally had mandated that they utilize firm zero carbon resources. And while we appreciate Senator Stern's approach and desire, and we want to see more firm zero carbon, the amendment we had been pushing for was that they remove the mandate, simply because firm zero carbon is very difficult and hard to procure and to utilize. And so this would get everyone in the state thinking more in that direction by including it in the IRP, but without setting a firm mandate. And so we moved initially, I think we were in a oppose unless amended position internally, and we have moved to recommend just a monitor position now as that mandate has been removed. I think that is it from me. I'm sorry, you can see there are now also fact sheets beyond in your board packet. Every bill that we're recommending taking a position on, we've included the fact sheet from the author. I think we're still waiting on a couple, but we will update those as we get them from the author's offices. With that, I'm happy to dig into any bills further if there are any questions.
Questions? And thank you so much for the presentation. Any questions on Zoom in the room? I also wanted to make sure we take public comment if there is any.
There are no members of the public with their hand raised at this time. Thank you.
Any comments or recommendations or motions?
Or to monitor.
And Chair and members, Director Lopez on video there. Please, if you have any questions about any bills or anything that's happening in Sacramento, reach out to me. I am always at your service. You all have my phone number and my email. So anytime I can be of support, please reach out.
Great. Thank you. So this is an informational item, which my understanding is, should we be good with the set of bills you are monitoring and or recommending a position for, that this will move forward to the full board, correct? And at that time, we would be calendared for action.
That's correct. So this will be an action item at the board meeting. And part of why we ended up rescheduling this meeting, and we thank all of you for your flexibility around the timing on this, was to make sure that we had a good window between this meeting and the board meeting to take any feedback and incorporate it into what we ultimately present to the board.
Thank you. So just wanted to give another opportunity for any feedback here. Of course, as staff said, they're available to meet if something comes up later. I want to, I have one question, maybe just to help me as a relatively new board member, put it in context. How does, is it 14 bills, right, we're recommending a position on? How does that compare historically to the number of bills on which ABAR has recommended a position?
Generally, we come in around a dozen, so it's, the reason that we outlined our thinking around how we got to the bills that we presented here today was to kind of make clear how we got down to what is the traditional number.
And part of that is that kind of framework of how to prioritize.
Yep.
To ensure that we're capturing those that are most impactful, and part of that is staff bandwidth. You know, if we're gonna take a position, we wanna be well informed, we wanna be engaged in the process. And obviously we have limited resources ourselves, between ourselves, other CCAs, and working with Cal CCA as well. We think about that kind of broader collaborative approach to the legislative platform.
Yeah, our team on the legislative side is essentially two folks, two FTEs. We've got Dominic here beside me, Kendall. They split their time between leg and regulatory, and Sam here, who's full-time on leg. To meaningfully engage on any bill is a serious effort, right? Each one of these bills takes a long time to parse. Engagement with community legislators, et cetera, on any of these bills, there's a lot of work that goes into chasing folks down, getting meetings, taking the meetings, doing follow-up, et cetera. So realistically, we're gonna wind up around a dozen or so bills every year. And it you know, it is a difficult process because there are a lot of really interesting, meaningful, important bills out there, but we have to decide where we wanna put our effort.
One thing I would add is you'll note that even in some bills where we're not recommending taking a position, we are pushing for amendments, either to clarify a certain piece or to guide it in a certain direction. So that is, even though we're only recommending 14 institutional positions, we do work and will continue to work for bills that we're not necessarily recommending you take a position on.
And inevitably, towards the end of the legislative session, there will be a spate of surprises.
254, for instance, came
Yeah.
late in the process, and it's a huge bill.
Right, so we expect some of these will fall away, but at the same time, we will see something new, there'll be an August surprise, and we will have to scramble on it.
And as of next week, we'll know the budget, which will give us some more guidance around how we're gonna work on the budget side too.
Are there certain legislators that are more receptive to CCAs and favorite ones? Like, when I was a teacher, we lobbied and we knew it was being carry bills or propose something.
Yeah, absolutely. As much as we would like to take credit for the fact that nobody's trying to kill CCAs this go around, the reality is that there has been significant turnover, particularly in the Senate. And we have friends there now that we did not have, notably Senator Araguin, who used to be the board chair for then EDC, now AVA. So we definitely are getting a sense of who our friends are, and we have significantly more of them in Sacramento than we used to.
Yeah, and
What's the
I
name of
commented
that
briefly on
what's the
this.
senator?
Araguin?
Araguin, yeah,
Araguin, yeah.
Berkeley, yeah, former council member for mayor. In January, we did a lobby day, a Cal CCA lobby day. We attended with some of our staff, and all the CCAs generally attended that. I made some comments just that our standing is sort of noticeably improving as we're having these legislative meetings and with staff of the governor's office and such. Very receptive, really focused on affordability was the tone of that day, of course, and really asking for our views and feedback on various energy-related bills to as just sort of thought partners and being problem solvers.
I wanted to thank staff for all your hard work to get to this point, and just wanted to acknowledge I had extensive discussions with Sam prior to this meeting, and just really appreciate the clarity that he has brought in justifying this particular set of recommendations and what should be monitored. So I feel very confident that this is the right set of legislation to monitor or recommend positions on, and I personally agree with the approach here. So if there's no other feedback, why don't we move on to item number 6, committee member and staff announcements. And this is also a time when you could request to place items on future board agendas. So anyone wishing to announce anything or add anything to an upcoming agenda of MRL? And
Can I make a request?
yes.
This is just from my, from my knowledge, is there a chance we could have at a later time of, an information, just a little in-service on data centers? More about what they involve and,
Yeah.
how Ava could, what type of role or part would Ava play in data centers?
Sure, we've done some work there, and it may be beneficial just to connect and make sure, because that's a pretty large
It is a
topic to
pretty large topic, I agree, but
and
for us
some of that
novices.
information, some of the work we're doing about data centers is not necessarily public information, because it's data center development, and so want to be very conscious of that. So maybe we could start at least with an offline conversation, just to understand what the specific interest in, and make sure that we're navigating that appropriately, and then find the right forum.
Okay, appreciate that.
Great. Any other items? Maybe we can use a large learning model to present on data centers. Are there any members of the public anywhere that wish to comment on item 6? None, okay. Well, with that, we are moving into the last part of the meeting, which is adjournment. The next meeting will be held on Friday, June 20th at 10 a.m. And with that, we are adjourned at 2:43.
Thanks all.